Again. Right, I have found Heidi and we are up to chapter 3. So this chapter is called Heidi and Clara. Let's find out what happens next. It was a long journey to Frankfurt. The sun was beginning to set when they stopped before a grand house in a cobbled street. Diet pulled the bell. "This is it," she muttered. A well-dressed servant opened the door and led them into a vast hall, and here you can see a picture of them arriving at the house and waiting out the front. Heidi felt very small and shabby. She felt even worse when the housekeeper, Mrs. Rottenmeier, saw her. "You look most unsuitable," she said to Heidi with a sigh. "I suppose you'd better meet Clara." There's the housekeeper. Clara lay on a heap of pillows in a frilly four-poster bed. Her face was pale and the room was hot. "Thank you for coming, Heidi," she said quietly. "I like having company. I can't get out of bed." "Why not?" asked Heidi. "I've been sick and I'm still weak," Clara explained. "I don't think I'll ever get better." There she is on her bed. No one could get better in this hot, stuffy room, Heidi thought. She ran over to a window and flung it wide open. The street below jostled with people, horses and carriages. Heidi could hear strange music mixed in with the clattering hooves and footsteps. "That'll cheer Clara up," she's thinking. Oh, we're over here. Leaning out, she saw a ragged boy with a street organ. A pair of kittens peeked out of his pockets. Can you see the kittens? Aren't they cute? He's got kittens in his pocket. Heidi rushed downstairs and onto the street. "Can you come here?" she called, beckoning him over. "There's someone I want you to play for." Moments later, they were both bounding up the stairs. "Surprise!" shouted Heidi, throwing open Clara's door and letting in the ragged boy. There they are, in Clara's room. Downstairs, Mrs. Rottenmeier, the housekeeper, was puzzled. She could hear singing, laughing, music, even kittens, all coming from Clara's bedroom. "What's going on in here?" she shrieked as she stormed into Clara's room. She is very, very angry, isn't she? "How did this dreadful boy get in?" she demanded. "I blame you," she said, glaring at Heidi. "I knew you were trouble from the moment I saw you. Go to your room at once." "No," pleaded Clara. "Heidi was only trying to cheer me up." She held Heidi's hand. "Please don't send Heidi to her room. We want to have our supper together." Oh, you see the kittens. They're scared. They're jumping off the bed. There was nothing Mrs. Rottenmeier could do. She had to obey Clara. "All right," she said crossly, turning to go. "But get that dirty boy out of here now." Mrs. Rottenmeier returned carrying a tray loaded with rich food. Greasy chunks of meat swam in a cream sauce. Clara pushed it around her plate and hardly ate anything. Heidi didn't like it either. "I don't get hungry lying in bed," Clara murmured. "You'd soon get hungry running up the mountain to Grandfather's hut," Heidi told her. Clara looked sad. "But since I've been ill, I can't walk." "That's terrible," Heidi said. The warm room and heavy meal were making her feel sleepy. She had to go outside to breathe some fresh air. Stale smells hung over the noisy street. Heidi longed for the cool, clear air of the mountain and the soft breeze that made the pine trees rustle. There she is on the busy street. It's very different to the mountain, isn't it? Sometime after Heidi's arrival, the servants started claiming the house was haunted by a ghost. "A white figure floats down the stairs at night," said a maid. And here you can see one is saying, "It's so pale. It's scary. I heard it groan." The servants were so upset, Mrs. Rottenmeier grew worried. "I must tell Clara's father," she decided. Here she is. She's saying to him, "The servants think the house is haunted, sir." "Really?" he says, reading his newspaper. Mr. Sesemann only laughed when he heard the news. "There's no such thing as ghosts," he said. "I'll catch your ghost to prove it." He does not believe there's a ghost. The next night he waited in the hall at the bottom of the stairs. Heidi came down, wearing a white nightgown. She tried to open the front door, but it was locked and she sobbed. Mr. Sesemann went over to her and saw she was still fast asleep. She's sleepwalking. "Heidi has been sleepwalking," Mr. Sesemann explained to Clara and Mrs. Rottenmeier the next morning. "The poor child is so homesick. Her dreams felt real. I think she'd better go home." "Thank goodness she's going," is what the housekeeper's thinking. "I'm going back to grandfather." That's what Heidi's thinking. And Clara is thinking, "I'll miss you." Chapter 4. It's called Heidi Goes Home. The following week, Grandfather looked out of the window and could hardly believe his eyes. A peculiar procession was stumbling up the mountain slope. There's Heidi in front and other people behind her. 2 men were struggling with suitcases. A third hauled a wheelchair, and a fourth carried a child bundled up in a shawl. The men puffed and panted, their shirts drenched in sweat. "This is steep," one says. "I need a drink," says another one. Ahead of them all danced Heidi. There she is. And she's so excited, she raced up the slope and threw herself into Grandfather's arms. "Heidi," he cried, "you've come back to me." "At last," she says. "I thought I'd never see you again," says Grandfather. And they're so happy to see each other. "I missed you," Heidi said. "Look, Mr. Sesemann has written you a letter to explain." And it says, "Dear Sir, Heidi was too homesick to stay with us, but Clara could not bear to say goodbye. I hope you will forgive me for sending her with Heidi to stay for a month. Clara, alas, is still very weak after a long illness. She has no appetite and cannot walk. I hope her visit to you on the mountain will give her new strength. With all my thanks and best wishes, yours sincerely, Hans Sesemann." That's the letter he's written to Heidi's grandfather. Grandfather turned to Clara. "I'm very pleased to meet you," he said, "and thank you for bringing Heidi back to me. You'll soon feel better breathing our mountain air." Grandfather put Clara's wheelchair in the sunshine so she could see the wonderful view and gave her a bowl of fresh milk. There she is, sitting on that lovely mountainside, drinking a bowl of fresh milk from one of the goats. "Guess who really gave you the milk?" Heidi teased, bringing Little Swan over. The goat butted Clara gently until she realized Little Swan wanted to be stroked. Clara drank thirstily. "This tastes much nicer than Frankfurt milk," she said. "Heidi!" came a shout. Peter ran up the path to them. "I heard you were back," he said to Heidi. "Come out with me tomorrow," he urged her. "Peter, I can't," said Heidi. "I have to stay with Clara." Peter gave Clara a jealous look. "You go, Heidi," Clara insisted. "I'll be fine," Clara says. "I'll pick you some flowers." That's what Heidi says back to Clara. All the same, when they set off the next morning, Clara looked sad. "I'll be quick," Heidi promised. I just want to climb the ridge where the biggest, bluest flowers grow." Clara watched them go longingly. She would have given anything to be running with them, with strong legs that could skip and jump. "I wish you'd come," Heidi told Clara when she returned. "We watched an eagle soar above our heads and did some somersaults down the mountain." Here she is, returning with some flowers for Clara. Clara sighed. "Cheer up," Grandfather said, trying to comfort her. "The sun has already brought roses to your cheeks. I'm sure you'll soon feel stronger." Clara is saying, "Oh, I wish I could walk." And Heidi is saying, "I won't leave you again." From where he stood, high on the mountain, Peter could see Heidi and Clara talking together. His heart burned with jealousy. "I wish that girl hadn't come," he thought. "Heidi's my friend. I'll make Clara go home." And a plan began to form in his mind. What is Peter going to do? We will read the last 2 chapters next time. Bye for now.